His episode takes us deep into the grim story of betrayal and murder that occurred in Fayetteville, Arkansas in April 2015. It's the tale of Johnny Ray Baxter, a successful real estate agent whose life was brutally taken by the person he trusted most. Johnny Ray Baxter, 45, lived in Fayetteville and was a well-known agent at the local Ozark real estate company. His broad smile and friendly personality made him a favorite among clients and colleagues alike. With a degree in business administration from the University of Arkansas and over 2 decades of experience in real estate, Johnny Ray's career was thriving. He was married to Darling Baxter, and on the surface they seemed like a happy couple. Johnny Ray was Darling's second husband, and he had a good relationship with his 18-year-old stepdaughter, Lily Adams, who was in her first year at the University of Arkansas studying psychology. But beneath the seemingly harmonious exterior, only Johnny Ray knew about the dark clouds looming over his life. Outside of work, Johnny Ray loved sailing. He often spent weekends on Beaver Lake with his small sailboat, the Dreamcatcher. His friends at the marina knew him as a helpful and friendly person, even in the days leading up to his tragic death. In April 2015, Johnny Ray was busy with a major commercial property deal in Fayetteville, a key project that was set to boost his career. Despite his hectic schedule, he was also planning a surprise for his wife's birthday. He had reserved a cabin in the Ozark Mountains, bought concert tickets in Little Rock, and picked out a special necklace from Sissy's log cabin. However, 2 days before his death, on April 10th, 2015, Johnny Ray was seen at AR Saga. He looked happy, talking about his weekend plans, unaware of what was about to unfold. Outwardly, his life seemed perfect. But his wife Darling had become increasingly stressed and worried, especially noticing changes in their daughter Lily. She had started to grow suspicious of Johnny Ray's late nights. Tension in the household had become noticeable to friends and neighbors. On April 12, 2015, around 7:30 a.m., Johnny Ray's body was discovered by his neighbor, Michael Everly, a 52-year-old retired teacher. Darling, who was visiting her sister, had become anxious after failing to reach Johnny Ray and asked Michael to check on him. Michael found the front door unlocked and immediately sensed something was wrong upon entering. After calling out and getting no response, he walked into the kitchen and noticed signs of a struggle. When he opened the master bedroom door, he found Johnny Ray lying on the floor, dead, covered in blood, and beaten to death with a hammer lying nearby. The room was in disarray, with blood everywhere, evidence that Johnny Ray had fought for his life. Shaken, Michael immediately called 911, his voice trembling as he described the scene to the operator, who tried to keep him calm until the police arrived. News of Johnny Ray's death quickly spread, and soon Maple Street was filled with police and curious neighbors. Michael, who had been friends with Johnny Ray for years, couldn't believe the brutal fate that had befallen his friend. He later told the media that Johnny Ray was a good man who didn't deserve such a horrific end. The discovery of Johnny Ray Baxter's body marked the beginning of a deeper tragedy. Thus began a tragic investigation that would eventually uncover hidden secrets and shocking revelations about those closest to Johnny Ray. Police arrived at the Baxter family home on April 12, 2015, shortly after receiving Michael Everly's 911 call. The first responding officers secured the area to ensure no one entered or left the crime scene. Soon after, Detectives Sarah Mitchell-Kinsey and James Carter arrived to lead the investigation. Detective Sarah Mitchell-Kinsey, known for her sharp attention to detail, had handled many tough cases in her 38 years. Meanwhile, her 42-year-old partner, James Carter, was renowned for his methodical approach. Together, they formed a strong team for handling complex cases. As the detectives entered the home, they immediately noticed signs of a struggle. Chairs were overturned, and broken glass littered the living room. The kitchen was even more chaotic, with dishes scattered across the floor. When they reached the master bedroom, they were met with a gruesome scene. Johnny Ray Baxter lay on the floor, surrounded by a pool of blood, having been bludgeoned to death with a hammer. Blood spattered the walls and furniture, revealing the sheer brutality of the attack. Mitchell-Kinsey immediately identified the hammer as the murder weapon and ordered it to be secured as evidence. The crime scene was chaotic and disturbing. The forensic team worked carefully, taking photographs, collecting blood samples, fingerprints, and the hammer for lab analysis. Meanwhile, outside the house, neighbors gathered, watching the police at work. Reporters from local news stations like KFSM and KNWA were also covering the shocking murder. They interviewed neighbors who described Johnny Ray as a friendly and kind man. Media coverage increased the pressure on the police to solve the case quickly. The detectives soon interviewed Michael Everly, who was still shaken after discovering Johnny Ray's body. Michael described how he found the door unlocked and saw the disarray inside. His detailed account helped detectives piece together the events leading up to the murder. By the end of the day, the police had gathered a substantial amount of evidence. But one major question remained: who could have committed such a brutal act? Why would anyone want to kill Johnny Ray? The first suspect in the case was his wife, Darling Baxter. Darling, 34, worked as an accountant at the local firm Razorback Accounting. Intelligent, meticulous, and hardworking, Darling had a difficult past. She became a mother at 16 and had once worked as a stripper to support herself and her daughter, Lily. Despite the challenges, she had built a successful career and was known as a strong woman. Recently, Darling had noticed changes in her daughter Lily's behavior and had begun to suspect Johnny Ray, who often came home late. Friends and neighbors also described Darling as increasingly stressed and anxious in the weeks leading up to the murder. Some even reported hearing arguments between Johnny Ray and Darling. On April 13, 2015, detectives Kinsey and Carter called Darling in for questioning. Though she appeared calm, it was clear she was deeply stressed. She insisted that at the time of the murder, she was visiting her sister Nancy in Little Rock and even provided photos and text messages to support her alibi. Still, the detectives remained suspicious. During the interrogation, Darling admitted that her relationship with Johnny Ray had been tense recently, mainly due to his demanding work schedule. However, she adamantly denied any involvement in his death. Darling explained that she had left home on the afternoon of April 11th and stayed with Nancy until the morning of April 12th. Nancy confirmed her story. However, tension was evident when Darling spoke about the changes she had noticed in her daughter, Lily. The police also searched Darling's car and belongings but found no evidence directly linking her to the murder. However, they did discover Darling's journal, filled with entries expressing frustration and suspicion toward Johnny Ray. These writings painted a picture of a woman under immense emotional strain. Despite her solid alibi, Darling remained the prime suspect. Detectives continued to investigate her background, interviewing friends, family, and colleagues, hoping to find a clue that could tie Darling to the crime. Meanwhile, the pressure on Darling grew as the investigation progressed. Although she maintained her innocence, the investigation into Darling Baxter was thorough, yet many questions remained unanswered. The detectives knew they had to dig deeper to uncover the truth behind Johnny Ray's brutal murder. The second suspect to come under scrutiny was his stepdaughter, Lily Adams. Lily, an 18-year-old psychology student at the University of Arkansas, was known as friendly, intelligent, and ambitious. Her friends described her as someone who enjoyed learning new things. However, the investigation revealed that her relationship with her stepfather, Johnny Ray, was more complicated than it seemed. It turned out they had been involved in a secret affair, leaving Lily feeling guilty and overwhelmed, especially as she saw the negative effect it had on her mother. On April 14, 2015, detectives Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter called Lily in for questioning. Lily appeared nervous but remained cooperative. She admitted to the affair with Johnny Ray, which she said had started about 6 months earlier. According to Lily, she had felt lonely and confused, and Johnny Ray had been there for her. However, she insisted that she never intended to hurt anyone. During the interrogation, Lily revealed that she had confided in a close friend about the affair because she felt so guilty. That friend, whose identity was not disclosed, confirmed Lily's story to the detectives. Lily also explained that the last time she saw Johnny Ray was the night before his death. They had argued about their secret relationship and its impact on the family. Lily claimed that on the night of the murder, she was at a friend's house studying for an exam. The friend confirmed this alibi, stating that Lily had been there until the early hours of April 12th. Although Lily's alibi seemed solid, detectives remained suspicious of her emotional turmoil. They searched Lily's dorm room and belongings but found no direct evidence linking her to the murder. However, they discovered letters and notes exchanged between Lily and Johnny Ray, revealing the depth of their relationship and the emotional turmoil they faced. Despite her strong alibi and minimal direct evidence, Lily remained the primary suspect due to the affair and the accompanying emotional tension. The police continued to interview Lily's friends and classmates, hoping to find clues or inconsistencies. Pressure on Lily mounted as the investigation progressed, but she maintained her innocence and expressed regret over the affair. On April 17, 2015, 5 days after the murder, the police received a significant breakthrough. On a cool morning, a runner discovered suspicious items in a park near Beaver Lake. He spotted a plastic bag partially buried under a pile of leaves next to a bench. When he opened the bag, he found a blood-stained shirt and a pair of gloves. The runner promptly called the police. Patrol officers Karen Lewis and Tom Martinez arrived at the scene minutes later and quickly secured the area. Detectives Mitchell Kinsey and Carter were summoned to assess the situation. The items were placed into evidence bags for further analysis. The detectives were cautious but hopeful that this new evidence would lead to progress in the case. In the forensic lab, it was found that the blood on the shirt matched Johnny Ray's DNA, while the fingerprints on the gloves did not belong to him. This evidence shifted the direction of the investigation. The detectives revisited the list of suspects and re-examined their alibis. Additionally, surveillance footage from the park and surrounding areas was intensively scrutinized. From reviewing the footage, a figure matching Lily Adams's description was seen entering the park on the night of the murder. Detectives Mitchell, Kinsey, and Carter promptly called Lily in for a second interrogation. This time, Lily appeared more anxious. She admitted that she had gone to the park to clear her mind, but insisted she had no knowledge of the bloody items found. Despite being pressed for more information, Lily stuck to her story. Meanwhile, the forensic team continued their analysis, hoping to uncover more clues that could reveal the truth behind Johnny Ray Baxter's death. The discovery of hair fibers on the gloves matching Darling Baxter's DNA complicated the investigation further. Indications of involvement between mother and daughter began to emerge. On April 18, 2015, detectives summoned Darling for questioning again. Although she appeared calm, concern was evident on her face as the new evidence was presented. Darling acknowledged that she recognized the gloves but insisted she was not involved in Johnny Ray's murder. She explained that she had used the gloves while gardening but had no idea how they ended up near Beaver Lake. The police were increasingly determined to solve the case. They realized that the truth was close to being revealed, but one last piece of the puzzle needed to be carefully put together. This discovery marked a crucial moment that provided a new direction in the investigation and strengthened their efforts to find Johnny Ray's killer. On April 19, 2015, the detectives decided to bring in a third suspect, Diddy Baxter, Johnny Ray's ex-wife. Diddy, 46, was known for her fiery and aggressive demeanor. Her marriage to Johnny Ray was filled with conflict, and she had never approved of his marriage to Darling. Diddy, who worked as a manager at a grocery store, arrived at the police station with a confrontational and uncooperative attitude. During the interrogation, she acknowledged her tumultuous relationship with Johnny Ray, describing their marriage as chaotic. Diddy also expressed her dislike for Darling, labeling her as a homewrecker and blaming her for the failure of her marriage. However, Diddy firmly denied any involvement in the murder. When asked about her whereabouts on the night of April 11th, Diddy claimed she had been home watching TV and drinking wine, specifically watching Dancing with the Stars before going to bed early. Unfortunately, there were no witnesses to confirm her alibi, which only heightened the detectives' suspicions. The police then searched Diddy's home and found a pair of gardening gloves similar to those discovered in the park. However, forensic analysis revealed no blood or DNA on those gloves. Despite the lack of direct evidence linking Diddy to the crime, the detectives continued to dig deeper, especially after learning that Diddy had recently found out about Johnny Ray's affair with Lily. This added tension and potential rage to Diddy's character. Friends and coworkers of Diddy confirmed that she was extremely upset and vocal about the affair, often venting her anger towards Johnny Ray. Neighbors reported hearing loud arguments from her house a few days before the murder. One neighbor, Mrs. Everly, claimed to have heard Diddy screaming about betrayal and lies. Although Diddy remained one of the prime suspects, the detectives still lacked sufficient evidence to detain her. Her aggressive demeanor during the interrogation raised further suspicions, but Diddy continued to assert her innocence. The investigation into Diddy added complexity to the case, and the detectives worked tirelessly to piece together the events leading to Johnny Ray's death. On April 21st, 2015, a significant breakthrough finally arrived. After days of investigation, detectives Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter uncovered crucial evidence surveillance footage from a nearby gas station. The footage showed Darling Baxter driving toward Beaver Lake late on the night of the murder. This became key evidence that contradicted Darling's alibi. In the footage, Darling's car, a blue Honda Civic, is clearly seen passing by the gas station at around 11:30 p.m. on April 11th. This evidence placed Darling near the scene of Johnny Ray's murder. On the morning of April 22nd, 2015, armed with this new evidence, the police were confident they had found Johnny Ray's killer. They headed to Darling Baxter's workplace, ready to bring the long investigation to a close. Local news outlets, including KFSM in Kauai, had begun covering the latest developments in the case. Darling was at her office when the police arrived. She looked shocked but remained composed as she was informed of her arrest on charges of murdering her husband. As she was escorted out in handcuffs, Darling continued to assert her innocence, despite the mounting evidence against her. The affair between Johnny Ray and Lily had left Darling filled with rage, feeling betrayed by both her husband and her own daughter. Detectives believed that on the night of the murder, Darling confronted Johnny Ray, and their argument escalated into violence. She was accused of grabbing a hammer and striking him multiple times until he was dead. Darling's arrest shocked the community. Neighbors and friends found it hard to believe that the hard-working and intelligent woman they knew could commit such a brutal act of violence. News of the arrest quickly spread, making headlines in the Effville Observer and airing on local news stations. Johnny Ray's family had mixed reactions. Some felt relieved that the perpetrator had been caught, while others were devastated by the betrayal. Lily, in particular, was deeply affected. In just a few days, she had lost her stepfather and her mother. The emotional burden on the family was immense. As Darling was taken to the police station, she continued to deny any involvement. However, the detectives were confident in their findings. The surveillance footage showing Darling's car, the forensic evidence, and her conflicting statements painted a clear picture of her guilt. The community of Ville was left reeling from this tragedy. Johnny Ray Baxter's murder had uncovered deep family secrets and left a profound impact on those who knew him. While the police may have solved the case, the emotional scars it left behind would take much longer to heal. Darling Baxter's trial for the murder of Johnny Ray Baxter began on July 15, 2015, at the Washington County Courthouse in Effville. The courtroom was filled with reporters from local news stations like KSSM and ANA, as well as concerned community members. The prosecution was led by Robert Stevens, a 45-year-old man known for his tenacity and assertiveness in court. He argued that Darling's motive for killing her husband stemmed from her discovery of the affair between Johnny Ray and Lily. Stevens portrayed Darling as a woman pushed to her breaking point by betrayal and emotional turmoil. He presented the surveillance footage of Darling's car near Beaver Lake, the forensic evidence from the crime scene, and Darling's contradictory statements to the police. On the defense side was attorney Michelle Williams, a 39-year-old woman known for her calm demeanor and legal acumen. She argued that Darling was innocent and that the existing evidence was purely circumstantial. Williams suggested that someone else might have committed the murder, possibly out of jealousy or anger. She questioned the reliability of the surveillance footage and emphasized that there were no eyewitnesses who saw Darling commit the crime. Throughout the trial, Johnny Ray's family sat in the front row, grappling with a mix of anger and sorrow. Lily, in particular, struggled to cope with the weight of her emotions during the proceedings. She had lost her stepfather and was now faced with the possibility of losing her mother to a lengthy prison sentence. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 3 days before reaching a verdict on August 3, 2015. The jury found Darling Baxter guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was tense as the verdict was read. Darling showed little emotion, while Johnny Ray's family cried and embraced one another. News of the verdict was quickly broadcast and extensively covered by the Effville Observer. Judge Lisa Everly sentenced Darling to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In her statement, the judge remarked that the evidence clearly demonstrated Darling's guilt, and that the crime resulted from profound betrayal and rage. She expressed sympathy for Johnny Ray's family, hoping that the sentence could provide them with some measure of justice. Reactions to the verdict varied widely. Some in the community felt that justice had been served, while others believed the punishment was too harsh, considering Darling's difficult past and the emotional pressure she faced. However, Johnny Ray's family felt relieved that the case had finally concluded and that the person responsible for his death had been held accountable. The trial and verdict marked the end of a tragic chapter in the Baxter family's life. The Effville community continued to grapple with the profound emotional impact of Johnny Ray's murder, but the conviction of Darling Baxter provided a glimmer of justice and a first step toward healing. After the trial and Darling's sentencing, life slowly returned to normal for those involved in this tragic case. For Darling, now serving her sentence at the Arkansas Department of Corrections, life had become a harsh routine. She was allowed only limited visits from family and friends, with strict rules governing her daily activities. Media coverage that had once surrounded the case gradually faded, replaced by new news stories and events in Effville, such as the annual Bikes, Blues, and BBQ festival that drew large crowds. Lily Adams, now 19, returned to the University of Arkansas to continue her studies in psychology. She struggled with guilt and sorrow over her role in the affair that ultimately contributed to her stepfather's death. Lily sought counseling to help cope with her emotional trauma and worked hard to rebuild her relationships with her family. She chose to distance herself from the media spotlight, focusing on her education and volunteering at a local animal shelter. Meanwhile, Detective Sarah Mitchell Kinsey received recognition for her role in solving this high-profile case. She continued her work with the Effville Police Department, investigating other crimes and mentoring younger detectives. Detective James Carter was transferred to the Narcotics Task Force in Northwest Arkansas, where he applied his investigative skills to combat drug-related crimes in the area. In the Effville community, memories of Johnny Ray remained alive. Neighbors and friends remembered him as a friendly and successful real estate agent who loved sailing on Beaver Lake. The local Rotary Club held a memorial ceremony in his honor, and a plaque was placed at the Fayetteville Town Center to commemorate his life and contributions to the community. Johnny Ray's family, especially his ex-wife Diddy, found solace in each other's company and support. Diddy focused on her career at Hart's Food Stores and became active in local charity events, such as the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure in Bentonville. She was determined to keep her family close and provide support to her grandchildren, who deeply missed their stepfather. As time passed, the wounds from Johnny Ray's murder began to heal, although the memory of the tragedy in April 2015 remained a part of Fayetteville's history. The community rallied together to support the Baxter family, offering sympathy and understanding as they tried to recover from this heavy ordeal. The tragic story of love, betrayal, and murder served as a reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the devastating impact of unchecked emotions. After the conclusion of Darling Baxter's trial and verdict, life in Fayetteville moved forward, albeit with lingering traces of trauma. Johnny Ray Baxter may have been gone, but the impact of his death continued to resonate in the lives of those who had been connected to him. The Fayetteville community slowly found ways to carry on, while the Baxter family attempted to piece together the remnants of their lives. Lily Adams, despite returning to university, still grappled with feelings of guilt and loss. The relationship she once had with Johnny Ray, which had initially seemed like an escape from loneliness, now felt like a haunting burden. Although she continued her studies, she often found herself trapped in thoughts about how things might have turned out differently had she not become so involved. The counseling she received helped her through the healing process, but the pain lingered, lurking in the corners of her mind. On the other hand, Darling Baxter faced her new reality behind bars. The life she once knew, full of activity and dynamism, had become a monotonous routine. Each day began with the silence of prison, as she struggled to comprehend how drastically her life had changed. Despite her continued claims of innocence, the incriminating evidence against her was undeniable. In prison, she received a few visits from family, but their relationships had been severely damaged by the events. Each conversation felt awkward and filled with unanswered questions. Phil, with all its activities, gradually began to forget about the case. Events like bikes, blues, and BBQ and various local festivals started to reinvigorate the community's spirit. However, for Johnny Ray's family, the wound was not easily forgotten. They tried to move forward, but the shadows of that tragedy still loomed large. Diddy Baxter, Johnny Ray's ex-wife, emerged as the strongest figure. Although devastated by the reality of her former husband's tragic death, she found solace in engaging in charitable activities and focusing on her family. She was determined to ensure her children and grandchildren would not endure further suffering, even though her heart remained broken by anger and disappointment. Meanwhile, detectives Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter continued their careers. Their success in solving the Johnny Ray case earned them a strong reputation, and they both pursued their work on different paths. However, this case remained one of the most memorable in their careers, not only due to its complexity but also because of the emotional impact it had on everyone involved. This case taught us how fragile human relationships can be when faced with betrayal and unchecked emotions. Love, hatred, and anger are often woven together with a delicate thread, and when one of these emotions crosses the line, the results can be far more devastating than we can imagine. Thus concludes a tragic story that will continue to haunt those who were involved. Thank you for following this tale. Stay vigilant, and join us next time as we delve deeper into other dark cases. Until then, take care and don't let your emotions take control.